W2AV Talk with Demetris Curry. Here's your gateway to discovering the formula to a more gratifying life with the accountability you need to start and stay energized, inspired, and on top. Author and wealth strategist Demetris Curry is a nationally leading voice and go-to authority on insurance and financial literacy. Got questions about your finances, relationships, healthy living, or professional life? W2AV talks about it all, along with tips to enhance your overall well-being. W2AV Talk with Demetris Curry.
Hello, everyone. This is Demetris Curry coming with you from W2AV Talk, author and host. And today we have none other than Mr. Alan Black. I'm so excited that we had the opportunity to talk with him. You know, we created the Authors Unite platform to get to know the author behind the scenes of their wonderful book of work, and get to know what they really wanted to tell the world in their piece of work, and then also what makes them tick. What makes them tick, and what exactly is helping them in this life, and what they want to do to change the journey and change the world for others. And so we're so excited that we have Mr. Alan Black with us today. I'm going to bring him on so we can just talk more about what he got going on and who he is doing things for and with in the next ventures that he has coming up. We have a lot of things in store for him, including some of the information on his show and what he shares on his show as well on the radio. And so I'm excited to get to know him even better. So let's bring him on. Mr. Allen, are you there?
I'm here, boy. That's a lot of pressure. That's all that kind of introduction. I don't know if I can live up to all that. I'm like, woo.
You can do it. You're all of that and more. I'm so excited that we have the opportunity to talk with you. And, you know, you are doing so much in this industry. I was looking at some of your things the other day and I said, look at him. He's out there with this radio show and he's talking to people about some really important topics. And I absolutely love it. So tell us more about what you have going on today and this type of time.
Well, as of today, in January 23, which I'm having a hard time processing because it really does seem like January 2022 was maybe a few weeks ago. So it just goes to illustrate that what the elders told us, Ms. Curry, is that the older you get, the faster time goes. Now, when you're young, you don't believe that. But when you get older, you realize they really didn't know what they were talking about.
Yes.
So I'm finding that to be the case. So I've already kind of set up what my goals and objectives are for, say, 2023. I actually did that probably prior to Christmas, and we'll start working on that. So I'm excited about some things that'll be going on. The radio show, we're going to do some things here different in 2023. So we're working through that right now. The authorship side is continuing to evolve. So I'm very excited about that. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for, I don't know why I'm going to do this, but I'm actually going to start looking into kind of branching into different areas of the authorship side. I had the opportunity back in October to try my hand at editing.
Really? Okay.
And I don't know if it was a smart thing to start out with, because the manuscript that the young lady said, I'm going to let you edit this, was actually like 135,000 words.
Whoa.
Now, when I'm looking back, Ms. Curry, I'm thinking, it probably wasn't a good idea to start with such a high number of words to begin with.
Right.
But I actually, what I did was I took it, I broke it down over the course of about 3 weeks or so, and I was actually done with it about 2 weeks in advance. Wow. But I really enjoyed the challenge.
Wow.
So I'm looking at doing something in that field maybe in 23, because there's something challenging about reading somebody else's work. Mm-hmm. You get a sense of the flow, the nuance of how they're writing, what their language is, what the slang is, and things of that different nature. So I enjoyed that. So I'm going to look at that in 23. I think from the authorship side as well, I'm currently writing for a blog called the Dreamers Collection in South Africa.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Been doing that for about a year. Really enjoy that. But I'm thinking, I might want to expand more into writing for blogs. And actually, this is my second blog. I actually wrote for a blog called Christian Blessings from 2016 until the end of 2020. And it's a blog that's over in Singapore. So I wrote for them for 5 years. So
Mm.
I enjoy that. I enjoy the challenge of doing that and kind of coming up with different topics that I'm going to challenge myself to write about. So that's really where the authorship side is for me. I'm going to, in 23, go back to my original writing roots, which
Mhm.
is really as a lyricist. So I write the words for the songs that people hear, nothing national or anything like that. But in fact, I'm pleased that I finished up a 5-year project at the end of December 17th.
Mhm.
I did a project through Fiverr with a young lady who did the vocals. The
Okay.
music, she is in Argentina. I did the lyrics here in the United States. And then we hooked up with a guy who's in Spain who did the video. It's actually a Christmas song that I always had a desire to do. So I wrote the lyrics for
Um,
the Christmas song. I'd always had a desire to do that. And so it finally came to fruition on December 17th. And
okay.
I dedicated to my mother who passed back in 2011. So that was something that was really on my bucket list to do. So, but I'm thinking in 2023, I want to go back to more of my roots with music,
Mhm.
collaboration in that area as well. So, looking at a couple of projects in music for 2023 also. So, I'm at a point where it's really about what is it that you're going to do that's going to speak to the contribution of your legacy
Mhm.
that you are leaving behind. One thing I think we have to keep in mind is that as authors, whatever we have written is always going to be here long after we're gone. It'll be 100 years from now. The books that you have written will still be there. The books that I have written or blogs that I've written for will still be there. So I'm looking at this. I'm on a legacy phase of my life where it's about, okay, what can I do that leaves a part of me behind after I'm gone?
Right.
And how does it speak to the lives of somebody 10 years from now or whatever the case may be? So that's really where I'm at right now in terms of what's ahead for me in 2023 and how much time I have left. I'm not dying or anything. I
You
want
you're gonna be here for a while.
I'll be here for a while, as long as the Lord is willing. Okay, Jesus, I ain't ready to go yet. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But you reach a point where you really come to realize, at least for me, what's really important. What
Mhm.
is that you're leaving behind? What have you done to really better the life of somebody else? That's really what it's about.
Right.
Even in my professional life, when I was in education, working for my local university, which I did for 14 years before I retired, I worked for the College of Education, the teacher college,
Mhm.
and I worked as an academic advisor in retention and recruiting. And so I had the opportunity to work with hundreds of thousands of students to get them from day one to the point, if possible, to the day they graduate. And
Mhm.
I've been gone for about 10 years, but the amazing thing is, and I'm really beginning to understand legacy, is the fact that even after 10 years of being gone, I still have contacts and connections with my students who may reach out and say, well, hey, Mr. Bryant, what about this or what about that? And give me your thoughts on this or give me your thoughts on that. And then
Right.
ironically, Ms. Curry, what's also happening is they're looking at me and they're saying, wow, you've written 3 books. So how can I write a book? Because I know you tell me how to do it. And I'm like, well, sure, I'll give you the knowledge I have to kind of help to direct you. I'm
Right.
not an expert on this because the authorship side for me, really and truly, Miss Curry, was something that began in 2015. I had no interest in becoming an author.
I know you were telling me that. You was like, that just came out of nowhere.
Came out of nowhere. When I started writing in 2015, I was still in my music phase of my life, but then God began to move me into the authorship side and just started giving me some ideas and some concepts, some short kind of inspirational type of essays
Yeah.
that he had me to start writing in, say, 2015. And it was such an unusual experience because of my background. Being in education, I'm very structured, very A plus B equals C, that kind of thing. And
Right.
so when he had the Holy Spirit to have me to start writing, it was scary because I was writing content, and then 5 or 10 minutes after I would finish it and get up and go get some water and come back, I couldn't remember what I'd written.
Mm.
It literally scared me to death. I didn't know what was going on. I was
Mm-hmm.
asking a friend of mine who's a pastor, I said, okay, bro, what is this? Because I don't do this. This is not who I am in terms
Right.
of doing something and I can't recall it. My music background is not structured in that way. And so he just said, okay, Alan, here's the deal. Are you going to be obedient to what the Holy Spirit is telling you to do? I said, yeah, I don't know. And I really said it like that, Miss Curry, because this is going into a whole new arena. I'm
A
not
whole
doing this.
nother arena. And you've written for several different genres. I mean, lyricists, I mean, for different areas of the country, geographic, Spain, Argentina, Singapore, everywhere. And but when you are writing from a place where you're being used as a vessel,
Yes.
it's a totally different thing.
Whole different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It causes each of us to really get to a position, I believe, where you have to put self aside, and then you have to be willing to say, I'm going to be obedient
Yeah.
and I'm going to follow your lead, God, as far as what it is you're calling me to do. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I just jumped on board and said, yeah, let's do this thing, because that's not me. That's not my background. So when I started doing this, and I began by writing for the blog Christian Blessings in Singapore in 2016 and started with them in January 2016. I'll never forget. Toward the end of 2015, I had sent out 5 or 6 different, I'm not going to send out about 10, 15 different requests to different blogs to say,
Mm-hmm.
can I write for you? And they said no. And so I was like, okay. So I told God, well, okay, it's not meant to be, so let's move on. And
Mm-hmm.
then this is how God worked. The very last one was Christian Blessings out of Singapore. The editor emailed me back the next day after I did a submission. She said, I like this. I want you to write for me
Wow.
every week. I was like, okay, whoa. Wait a minute. Hold on.
That's you said every week.
Whoa. I said, wait a minute, not every week. So first of all, I don't know what I'm doing. And then second, I said, why don't we back this thing up to maybe once a month? That's a little better. And so she said, okay, I can do once a month. And then she told me, okay, your first article you'll submit for January 2016
Mm-hmm.
needs to tie in with the beginning of a new year.
Okay.
It needs to be at least 300 words long. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? 300 words to me at that time may as well have been 10,000 words.
Right. I
I
got you.
had no idea what I was going to write. I'll never forget December 27, 2015. I'm driving home and I heard this song, and it's amazing because God again tied me back to my lyrical background. The song that we've all heard around the end of the year, Old Lang Syne.
Mm.
There are some lyrics in there that says, will old acquaintances be forgotten? And that was my first writing for Christian Blessing called Old Acquaintances. And to
Mm.
sum that one up, what I'm referring to is as we go into the beginning of each year, like we are in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
what are the old acquaintances that we need to get rid of? Is it a lack of faith with me? Is it, say, procrastination?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the fear that we have of trying something?
Mm.
Is it your diet? Whatever it may be, what is that old acquaintance that you said, this is the time I need to really get rid of it? And so that really got me off to a good start because people were reading it and they were saying, that makes a lot of sense because there are some old acquaintances that are part of my life that I really need to get rid of because they're
Yeah,
not doing me any good.
that's good food right there.
And so when I write or when the Holy Spirit has me to write, most of my essays in all 3 books, Ms. Curry, are probably 2 or 3 pages long. They're not that long. It's very like a short summation where I use a concept and just kind of bring it all together. Like
Right.
I'll give you an example, which is abstract to most people, but makes sense when I wrote it. The 3rd book, which is an ebook called Just a Closer Walk, there is one particular chapter that everybody really likes called a blank canvas.
I love that blank canvas.
Now that's the one. Because it talks about each of us come into this world as a blank canvas.
Yes.
And as we go through the process of our journey, we're going to have different experiences, different things that happen to us, different people that
Yes.
become a part of our life who are going to help fill in that canvas as we go through this walk on earth. And so, how is that canvas going to be filled? And I'm a firm believer that a lot of times the canvas, us, isn't just filled by God directly, it's also filled by Him indirectly because He will purposely place people and events in your life that are going to be a part of that pouring into you process that continue to shape and mold you as the canvas that you're going to become over a period of time.
Right.
So that's kind of the concept I use for that one. And then there's another one which I didn't tell you about, which is called Of Mice and Men. And what that one is about, there's a saying that the plans of mice and men often go astray. And so what I'm building with that of mice and men is the fact that each of us have what we consider our own plans and goals that we want to see fulfilled, which is
Right.
okay.
Yes.
But we have to also be aware of the fact that of mice and men, sometimes the goals and dreams that we have are not necessarily those things that will come to fruition because God has a different plan for you. And so that's why I wrote that one. I said of mice and men, how plans can often go astray. Sometimes plans go astray because that's not what God's calling you to do.
And your destiny is in a different direction.
Destiny's a whole different direction.
And I was when I was and let me pause here for a second, because when we were talking about the blank canvas, I typically use that a lot when I'm working with clients and looking at their portfolios and their real estate and their finances and trying to build out what makes sense for them. And we talk about it from the standpoint of a blank canvas. And so when I saw that work, I was like, he's talking my language, because it's where you don't know in life where the fine lines come into the shadows, the different strokes of life that hit you
Exactly.
in such a way where it leaves as leave a mark, it leaves a bruise, it may leave some wisdom, it may leave all these things that you just have no idea that is a part of your complete canvas.
Exactly.
And that whole picture of what it creates, who you are, what it creates from you, your background, your struggles, your livelihood, your previous history with your family, things of that nature. All creates that canvas. And so when I was reading that, I was like, and now you're telling me about the destination of how where you think you're supposed to go may not be necessarily what God has in store for you.
No. And when I wrote of mice and men, talking about the plans of mice and men often go astray,
Yeah.
I'm using myself as an example because to become a Christian author, having released 3 books now, this was not my plan. I've always been clear with that with people that I talk to and share my story with. I'm saying, okay, I'm a prime example of what I wrote about because I'm over here. And in 2015, God said, okay, we're going this direction now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Because this is not what I wanted to do. But we know that Jeremiah 29:11 talks about it. He knows the plans he has for each of us.
Each of us.
And so we have to be aware of the fact that our plans sometimes may not match up with his plans.
His plans.
Because his plans are going to be for the betterment of us. He knows what's best.
Right.
Now, are we willing to say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you and invest in your plan? Or are we going to say in our humanness, don't worry about it, God, I got this. I got this thing. I'm good. Don't worry about it. And we all have done that, and we've all messed up. And then we look around, and then we have the nervous curve. We want to say, well, you know, God, you really messed me up. And God can say, you made that choice. I didn't. Did you forget? Because we all have selective amnesia when it comes
That's
to
right.
certain things. When we say, I can't believe God did this.
I can't believe I did that. And I told another author that the other day. She said, she said, you sat on that book for 10 years before you released it. I wrote Brighter Days Ahead 10 years ago. And just wasn't ready to release it. It was so personal. God told me to talk about, being held at gunpoint. He said, talk about, being abused. Talk about these things and talk about your fears and talk about this. And I just jotted it down in a journal. I always love to do a journal, keep a journal by my bed. And I just started putting it all in the journal. And next thing I knew, I had a book.
There you go.
Just a journal.
There you go.
And I said, God, these is personal things. He said, somebody needs to hear it.
That's right.
And it literally took me 10 years to release it. And I didn't release it until 2022 to let it out. But the testimonials of what people get from what you give in your story and letting God use you it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. You would have no idea who else out there needed to hear that you allowed yourself to be used as a vessel and to get that message to them in their right now situation. You know what I mean?
And I would also say to individuals who are thinking, well, yeah, he's saying that, but it was an easy process. No, trust me. No. Because also let me point out that when this journey in the authorship began, I wasn't a spring chicken. I was 60 years old when this started. Okay?
Yeah, you were telling me that. I was like, wow. I mean, hey.
So I was 60 and then God took me a whole different direction. I was like, God, ain't you got somebody younger who can do this? I'm in retirement. Okay, you sure you got the right person? So it also reinforces the fact that, and we hear this, but until we experience, I think it really hits home. When it talks about God is not a respecter of person, I have also incorporated that to mean that, you know what? He's not a respecter of the person, your circumstances, your age. Why would that matter to God? It's irrelevant.
It is
so
relevant.
I'm a living example at 60, no experience being a writer other than lyrically. Little technology knowledge, because I was like, what am I supposed to do here? And I still don't format, upload. That's not me. So it also took me into a position where I said, okay, recognize what I can do. But also it's important to recognize what it is I cannot do. And then say, okay, I'm going to collaborate with somebody whose strength is uploading my book, whose strength is formatting it for Amazon or whoever. Collaborate with those people, because the authorship side or any journey that you're doing, even in your real estate career, you don't have to do it all by yourself. That's the power of collaboration.
Yes, so important.
So you have the capacity to connect with people and then make it come to fruition. And so that's something that is critical that I always pass along to people when they're asking me my story, is the fact that know what your strength is, but also know what it is that you might need help with.
Right.
Because we're in a society, and particularly as men, I'm just going to talk about men, that we as men are going to think, well, I have to do all this by myself. Nobody else can help me because I'm a man. Well, that's just dumb, first of all. I'm just going to say it because I'm old enough I can recognize I done some dumb things thinking I could do it by myself, and I messed it up.
That's all right.
But when I stepped away from the issue of pride and determination to be the one and only, I've begun to recognize that there is strength in numbers. There is the capacity to say, I can work with somebody. We can reach this goal together in
Mhm.
collaboration.
Yes.
And so that's the key. I'm sure even with your real estate career, when you're talking about your clients, okay, you don't have to know everything, but that's why I'm here
Right.
to assist you so we can work together as a team to get you to the point where you're trying to get to.
Right.
And so that's been a great lesson. And not being afraid because the technology stuff,
Mhm.
being the social media person I've been working with for 4 years, bless her heart, she's so patient, I tell you. Uh,
Look, I have a team too that does that. I'm like, oh, thank y'all.
she was talking about, she said, okay, Alan, you got to be on Facebook and you got to do the Instagram. And then she kept saying, okay, you have to put the hashtag on things
Yeah.
on there. And I was like, you mean that thing above the number 3? That's a number sign. She said, we don't call it the number sign anymore.
It's called the hashtag.
That's what she said. I was like, why? She said, that's not what's important. It's changed. And so I'm like, well, I guess I have to change. Now I'll give you one minor point, which was dramatic for me. Then she was reading something that I wrote because we were working on a project. She said, okay, Alan, I have to tell you some really serious news here. I'm like, oh man, what did I do? She said, now, when you write, after you do a period, you only need one space. And I was like, what are you talking about?
We always learn two spaces in
I said,
school.
I've been doing two spaces since I was in junior high. She said,
Right.
we don't do it anymore. I'm like, wait. What are you talking about? She said, we only need one space after a period. And I was traumatized because I've been doing two spaces since I was 14. I'll be 68 this year. So
Oh,
we're talking about 50 plus years of saying two spaces after a period. She said, well, back in the dark ages when you were growing up, you had a typewriter. I said, yeah. She said, we don't have typewriters
we don't
anymore.
have that no more. So ain't no two spaces no more. You gotta have
No, I
just
was like,
one space.
wow. And it's been things like that that have been really a growing experience. So,
Yeah.
and this doesn't pertain just to your authorship side, but whatever you're going to do,
Mhm.
you will have to grow, you have to evolve,
Mhm.
and you have to say, I'm going to change with the times or I'll get left behind. I'm a guy because I was old school. I didn't want to text. But when I was texting my godchildren, no, I would call. They wouldn't answer the phone. I called. They wouldn't answer the phone. If I text, they'd answer just like that. I'm like, why don't you pick up the phone? It's a weird like talking on the phone. I'm like, but
That's why you got a phone.
why? And so I finally got it through my thick skull. This new generation, they
Yeah.
just do things in a certain way. And so even at 67 now, I said, you know what? I have to evolve.
Yeah.
And so whatever you're going to do, you have to evolve. Change is not easy.
Yeah.
It's a major challenge because it takes you out of a place of comfort into new territories.
Correct.
And so I'm the first to admit that because even as this journey has gone forward as an author, it's taken me into areas I never had any idea of doing. Me doing interviews when I first started out doing this was not something I was used to doing.
Right.
Somebody said, you go do radio interviews or interview with people online. I'm looking like, what does that mean? I didn't even know what it means. They said, well, you got to get with the time. I'm like, why? They said, you just have to.
And that's funny because when I started W2AV Talk a couple of years ago, I didn't do any of this. I'm not a radio person. I'm not a person that get on to TV and all this stuff. And I said, you know what? Let's just have conversation. Let's just
That's
talk.
it.
Let's just be ourselves. Let's get to know the person. And that's where it all began. But I think that, it allows us the opportunity to get to know, others that's in doing different fields that also have a common ground. And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. I'm learning so much from you. I love you for your wisdom. Thank you so much for that.
Well, you see all this gray hair. It's been a whole lot of bad mistakes that I done made. And I'm like, well, I hope I learned something. But now I'm trying to pass it on to my godchildren. I'm like, okay, this is why
Yeah.
you do A and don't do B. Well, how do you know, God? That you know what? Long before you guys came on, God Dad did B, and all it did was mess everything up.
That's right.
So I've got the scars to show for it, but I guess that's a part of the journey, part of my blank canvas.
It's a part of
That
your
has
blank
been
canvas.
filled. I wish
Yes.
something had been in the canvas, but that's another story for another time. And so you learn you learn with the wisdom. I think as you get older, you begin to realize, hopefully, and this is one thing I really believe COVID has hopefully driven home.
Hmm.
You really start to, or hopefully you start to realize, what's really important.
Hmm.
What are the things we took for granted? We took for granted going to get pizza. We took for granted going to sporting events. And then when we lost it, we were like, what am I supposed to do? And
Or
so
cooking together.
you
Cooking
couldn't do
together.
that.
Cooking together. My husband and I, we cook together all the time. And so that's our time away from work, from
Exactly.
everything else that we got going on. We meet up in the kitchen after a crazy day and we cook together to sort of help create that. Hey, how was your day? Tell me how you're feeling. What's
Hmm.
going on? That, yeah. And you trust and believe. My great aunt, she actually passed of COVID, and she was in her early 80s, and her and I will always cook together when I went home to visit. And she showed me how to make her, sweet potatoes. She was a dietitian by trade. And so
Oh,
she's
okay.
how to make her sweet potatoes with natural sugars and pineapples and apples and all those
Hmm.
good things. And when she passed, that was the one thing that I missed the most,
Right.
is that I couldn't just go home and see her and say, "Hey, can we cook some yams? Or could we cook this? Or could we cook that?" And we just catch up in the kitchen. Does that
Exactly.
make sense? And it's
It makes
like you said,
perfect sense.
it's just so important things.
And those are the things that I think hopefully were reinforced in COVID. Okay, you may not have the $500,000 house that you want, but during COVID, did you have a roof over your head?
Hmm.
Were you able to avoid the virus as much
Hmm.
as possible? If you got it, were you able to recover fairly quickly? I did after about 3 days of COVID.
Hmm.
Did you have the capacity because of this new technology to connect with friends from the past?
Hmm.
Because maybe we couldn't travel anymore.
Right.
And so to me, those things really became important, at least
Hmm.
for me personally. And I began to think, you know what? It just it's just good just to be able to go to the grocery store and be able to shop. It's good to go get pizza or try to go to the movie or something like that. Now we're still going to be careful, I hope.
Right.
But COVID, I really think, helped to hopefully really get you down to the brass tacks and let you know what's really important.
True. True.
So
I call it the reset button.
it is.
Hmm.
It really
It was
is.
like a reset button in so many ways, in family and in
Exactly.
conversation, and you know uh, being able to be home with your kids more, all of that. And it was a complete reset button. Like, wow, all the stuff that you thought was so important in life, it's not as important as you thought it were.
No, it's not.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's not. You really begin to realize, and I think when you have the misfortune of looking around and you see people who are dealing with COVID, people who didn't make it. I've had a couple of my former students that got COVID that passed away from it.
Mm,
And that really should be an eye opening experience. And it should really make you think, you know what? Stuff that I've been holding on, I've been bitter about, or being petty about. What am I doing?
right.
What am I doing? Because it's not that important. So
Mhm.
I think these last 2 or 3 years or so have really, like you said, it's called us to reset,
Right.
see where we are
Yeah.
in life, and hopefully it's given us a better appreciation of the things that perhaps that we took for granted. I think that's certainly the case with me. It's like, okay, well, I've got the basics, I got the roof over the head, and I can get from A to B. I'm
Hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a whole lot more at this age because my life is essentially way behind me as opposed to what's ahead of me. So,
Right.
about again, like I said before, the legacy and what can I do to leave something behind for somebody else
Right.
and
Right.
maybe encourage somebody because all it takes sometimes is just one or two words from somebody and it can be life changing. I'll never forget when I was at the university, Miss Curry. I was doing an advising session with a young lady, and I said something to her, and she wrote it down on a little slip of paper. I don't remember what it was. And she came back about a year later, and we were talking again, and her whole mood was more upbeat. She was more positive. And I was saying, okay, I noticed a change in you that you seem to be doing much better. And she said, well, you know what? I wrote down this note that you said such and such and such, and I always kept it with me. And
Oh.
I was floored.
Oh.
I was floored because I was like, I don't even remember saying it, but what I was really humbled by was the fact that if I said something to her that encouraged her,
Right.
I'm not taking any credit for it because that was just the Holy Spirit giving me what to say at that time. But it
Mm-hmm.
really reminded me of the fact that there's so much power in our words, what we say and what we don't say,
Mm-hmm.
because it can literally change the destiny of somebody. And what we may think is a throwaway statement,
Mm-hmm.
might
Mm-hmm.
be hold on to that, and that might be the thing that turns their life around. We just never know. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what you're writing, yes, it was a 10-year period where you had to come to the point of saying, I need to release it. But I'm a firm believer that things are done in a time sequence that's according to what God is calling for us.
Right.
And one thing I've discovered about writing, sometimes it's about getting stuff out, but it's also about, Miss Curry, what is it that we're getting out that's speaking to somebody else in a situation where they're looking for something
Yeah.
that reaffirms the fact that they're going to be okay.
That they're going to be okay. That there's brighter days coming.
Yes,
That there's a brighter day, and which is why I called it brighter days ahead. Because if you're going through something right now, on the other side of it, when you
exactly.
get on the other side of it, and you look back, there's a reason why you went through that. There's a something out of it that you're supposed to get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with the experiences that you have, even as traumatic as they were,
Mm-hmm.
when somebody is reading your book and they say, well, Miss Curry went through so much, but look at where she's at now. And so that can give somebody the inspiration to say, well, man, she did it, so I know I can do it.
That's
And,
right.
and, and that's, again, part of our legacy because we don't know who our books are speaking to, and we may never know. And I'm a firm believer that it's not intended for us to know.
It's not for us.
Because if we're just being obedient, then we are planting a seed of sort, and we'll let God do the watering.
That's right.
We don't have to jump out there with a power hose, whatever, trying to water.
You mean I ain't got to bring my water
No,
hose?
you ain't bring the water hose. God said, "I got this. I'll do the watering.
Okay.
I'm gonna have you plant the seed."
That's right.
But if our humanists, we're gonna say we're gonna plant, we're gonna water, we're gonna fertilize it, we're gonna turn it up. We're gonna say to God, "When's it gonna grow?" And God say, "You want to just be patient and let me deal with this."
Let me do what I do.
I do I do what I do better than what you do. So then
That's
we
right.
done that. I said, okay, God, I planted the seed. When we gonna water? There's no we, there's me.
That's me.
M-E like W-E.
I
Okay.
used you for the seed. Let me do the watering.
Yeah, that would
That's
be
right.
M-E. So,
That's right.
but it's all part of our journey,
It
and it's a part
is.
of this blank canvas experience that we're all going through. So I really it's been a great journey.
Yeah.
It's been going on 8 years. It's evolved over the last 2 years or so, where 4 guys got together from different denominational backgrounds too to do a radio show. Because it's called AJDW Conversation. So we did that for 2 years. We're looking at doing some things different at 23 for that for right now. But you have one guy, I came from the Methodist denomination, one guy, a pastor out of Kojic denomination, one guy Baptist, and one guy was Pentecostal. So all 4 of us came together because of our love of God, and we would talk each week on what's called AJDW Conversation. Now, the reality of this is, Ms. Kern, I know you recognize this. 20 years, 4 men of those type of 4 different denominational backgrounds could not get together and talk.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
We'd be sending each other down where it's hot and warm all the time in about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But we've come to recognize that the denomination as such isn't what's important. It's about the relationship. That's really what it's about. So that's what enabled us to do this for the 2 years plus to do this. And we talked different subjects. We were very open. We were very transparent. We've talked about issues such as, the stigma of, like, say, mental health. When do we as a people stop looking at this as, well, you got a demon in you, you just need to pray it out? No, it's a little deeper than that. Okay. It's okay to get professional help. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to say, I need to talk to somebody. So we've been very transparent talking about those things. We've talked about our relationships with our children, the challenges that we've had as fathers and as godparents. And so it's unusual for 4 Black men to get together and to be open and be transparent.
Right.
Because we as men have, first of all, there is a shield that we put up in front of us, around us, where we have to make sure we're competing against this guy, or I don't want him to see that I'm soft or whatever, stuff like that, which is really ridiculous. We've talked about, and I've talked about, because I've done health tips for this program as well. When do we as men stop saying, I'm not going to the doctor because it makes me look weak?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how is that helping? And I've talked about, as men, if you say that, Ms. Curry, and you say, well, I don't want to go to the doctor because I'll walk it off, I'll be fine, I'll tough it out. But when do we as men recognize that the impact and the collateral damage is such that if we get sick, if we pass away, it's not just us. The collateral damage is to your family,
to
your children, to your grandchildren.
Don't even get me started there.
Because now you're
now, because you already know I've been an insurance agent for 20 years.
I know.
So listen, you about to open up a whole nother can of worms, Mr.
But if you need to open that can of worms, because you know what? Let's be honest. We're being transparent.
Yes.
We have got to get past the stigma of saying, I don't need no insurance. They just try to take me for a ride. Okay. And something happens to you. What's going to happen to your kids?
To your family?
What's going to replace your income?
Income that is no longer there.
It's gone.
It's gone.
And if you're leaving your wife with 3 kids or whatever the case may be, and your income's gone, what is she supposed to do?
I guess you're just supposed to swing it. so just figure it out, right?
So and I've read, because I was listening to one of your broadcasts on your YouTube page, and you were hitting home about, this is why you need the insurance, because guess what? It's bigger than just you. What happens when you're gone and there's nothing there to replace that?
That is so true.
And so I'm very adamant about that, and I made it. I think I finally got my head straight when I was 32 about getting insurance, because my mother just said, okay, you were in your 30s. You've been dragging your feet about this insurance. She said, you going to go get some insurance.
You going to go get it together.
And I said, what if I don't want to? She said, I didn't ask you.
I'm telling you.
So I was like, okay. So I went, and I regret the fact I didn't start in my 20s. But, men in their 20s, I tried to be Superman, trying to do all kind of dumb stuff, and they
Right.
wasted the 20s. I wasted mine. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Right.
But when you get to about 28, 29, 30, you start saying, okay, well, I got to get serious about this thing. I can't keep running the streets and being a clown all my life because this is not cool. I got to have some responsibility, something. And so when we're talking about, and we talked about those issues as well, okay, what are we doing that impacts the family and the community if we don't do A, B, and C?
Right.
Because those things are going to have a severe impact on your family, your community, and things like that. I had a guy from my church a year and a half ago, had been dealing with some issues with prostrate issues. Wouldn't go to the doctor, wouldn't go to the doctor, wouldn't go to the doctor, wouldn't go to the doctor. When he finally went, Miss Curry, he went to the emergency room. And they told him it's too late. 3 weeks later, he's gone.
Oh, goodness.
And so I was extremely upset. I was very frustrated because I got to thinking this was preventable.
Yeah.
We can't do this. And men suffer from a non-scientific disease. It's not in the medical books, but it's called HMS. Now, I'm going to tell you what HMS stands for. It stands for hard-headed man syndrome. Every man suffers from HMS, and every woman probably suffers from hard-headed female syndrome in some shape, form, or fashion. Because we feel like I'm going to grind my way through it. I'm going to make it happen. It's going to be okay.
Right.
And that's where the Bible talks about the issue of our pride.
Pride. Yeah.
Right. And pride is good to have, but when it gets to the point where it's out of control or it takes over, then that's when these issues come up. So with HMS, hard-headed man syndrome, a lot of times it's like, okay, man, I ain't going to no doctor, man. He ain't going to be sticking me with no needles and stuff like that. I ain't getting no flu shot and stuff like that. And then you get sick of what happened, and then you're like, oh, man, this ain't fair. Well, guess what? Grandma said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Now, you know what?
Listening.
This is so good because I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do when we get this recording and we release it. I'm gonna send it firsthand to some text messages to some people. I'm gonna text it. I'm gonna text it to a few of the men out there and say, "Listen to this."
Listen.
I want you to listen to this recording. Just listen.
And listen to somebody who is 67, will be 68 at the end of April, who has dealt with HMS for a long time and finally recognized, you know what? I'm making this life harder than it has to be.
Yes.
Why?
And you don't want to, and I'll go off on a whole nother tangent, so I'm going to make this short. But I'm telling you, you don't want to leave your family in a position
you can't
where they just have to figure it out.
And it's wrong. It is, to me, this is just Alan. Financially, it's wrong.
Right.
Morally, it's wrong.
Right.
Emotionally, it's wrong because the collateral side of this, which you know from your insurance background, is okay. This is what I call the morning after. Okay, you're gone the morning after. They're looking at their situation. And they're saying, what am I going to do? Or the other thing that is collaterally oriented is, what are you teaching your children? If they're saying, well, daddy did it that way, so why should I do it any different? Because they're following our actions. They're seeing what we're doing. And if we do it the non-productive way, should we be surprised if that's what they pick up and go with?
And it creates a generational deficit. See, I'm gonna have to come to your show and we just talk about this.
Yeah,
it creates a generational deficit of literally, I'm in a financial bind. I got to try to figure out how to bury this person. Now I have to figure out how to maintain our household.
Yep.
And we have more bills than we have income now. Now we're going to have to do without some of our assets or turn some stuff in or repossessions or leave our house or lose our house or whatever. And now the kids want to do things that they used to doing that they can't do anymore because we don't have the money to do it anymore. It changes the whole landscape of lifestyle.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotional trauma.
Yes.
The trauma as far as how somebody goes forward.
Mm-hmm.
Are there things they're internalizing that they carry forth?
Yes.
They may carry into the next relationship that they have.
Resentment
and anger and bitterness. And then they're projecting onto the person they're with.
That's right.
So that's part of that generational type of negative impact.
Mm-hmm.
So you really find yourself thinking, okay, this really isn't cool. This isn't the way to do things.
Right.
And then you've got two people that are going at it, and they're dealing at it from a level of what is the symptom.
Right.
But they don't understand that the problem is well beneath them.
Right.
That problem has been foundational for so long. Now it's manifesting itself where now it's coming out.
Absolutely.
It's a law of the spirit. It's just the way it is.
And that's absolutely true. We'll be on here all day.
Yeah, I know we about 50 minutes already, and so a lot of this. I just speak from experience, and experience sometimes is wisdom. And for me, Miss Curry, experience is like been there, done that.
Been there, done that.
Done it the wrong way and figured out, there's a better way to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that when my goddaughter was born, and she really was looking to me to be a good role model along with her father and stuff. And I was like 35 at the time. And I was like, okay, she's really leaning on me heavily.
Right.
I don't have kids, but she's like my daughter. And I was like, okay, I got to be responsible. I got to set examples and do stuff. And I had to learn to have conversations and not just short bursts because she would want to talk. And I'm like, okay, let's get to the point here so I can move on. It doesn't work that way with a little girl.
It doesn't. You have to be patient. You have to be patient.
And I have to be patient. I have to learn, I've got to learn to talk. I've got to learn to open up. I have to learn how to listen.
Right.
I've had to learn at times not to try to fix things immediately.
Yep.
That's against my nature because of my academic background. I'm used to, okay, let's fix it. And so I had to learn all of these things.
Right.
And so she was a major part of that growing and everything and saying, okay, I have to grow. I have to change. I have to be better. I have to set examples. I can't be wild and crazy.
Right.
And do stuff because she's watching.
Right.
I was like, man, I gotta be a grown up now, man.
But now you got that wisdom, and you have just, you've given us a lot today of what has created your canvas and to how you're here now because of everything that you've experienced and everything that you've had the opportunity to witness and to be a part of. I mean, internationally, lyrically and everything. I mean, you've done so much, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you sharing so much with us today. Oh my goodness. I get little chill bumps because I'm like, there's so much wisdom in just one conversation and I absorb. I'm one of those that love to be around others that can feed into me something I didn't know or I didn't have the experience myself. So I appreciate it.
And I hope that as much as anything, it's about me sharing because all of us have a story. All of us have experiences. And what we want to recognize, Ms. Curry, is that when we're sharing these things, somebody is listening and somebody is saying, sounds like me. Sounds like something I'm dealing with. Yeah. You know what? They figured out a way. So I do have hope. So again, we just never know who we're having an impact on. I remember my godson about a month ago came by the house because I had some computer stuff. I had no idea what to do with it. So I said, why don't you come over here and fix this? He's like, I'll be there just a minute. Now I'm frustrated because I'm trying to read the instruction. I'm trying to figure it out. Miss Curry, he came in here in 1 minute. He had it figured out. I was frustrated. I was mad at first. And I was like, how do you know this? He said, well, this is what I do, guys. It ain't no big deal. So I was like,
Yeah.
but he had a young man with him. And he said, so the young man said, well, so who is he? Talking about me. He said, oh, this is my guy there. He's really been a big help to me. He's been like a second father to me all my life and everything. And I was blown away because I never thought of myself in that manner.
Right.
I just tried to do what was on my heart to do. That's my background. That's what my parents taught me.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And so for him to say that and to share that with a young man that he's mentoring, I was totally floored. I couldn't believe it.
It's a humbling thing when someone says that they look at you as a mentor, they look at you as a like a big sister or a big brother, and you're like, wow. I know exactly what you're talking about. We got to make sure we continue to stay connected, okay?
We will for sure. And if you ever need me on a platform where I could just talk about HMS, I'm more than willing to do that.
Absolutely. And if you need anything from me, you know how to reach me.
Absolutely, Ms. Curry.
How can we follow you? Please tell us.
I'm on Instagram under Alan T. Black 55. And my website is alantblack.com. That's ALANTBLACK.com.
Okay.
So those are my contact points. I'm going to share one more story.
Okay.
Y'all forgive me for the sniffling because I've got a head cold. And,
oh.
But here's why. 2 weeks ago, it was 15 below. Today, it's like 30 degrees. So the weather extremes are really driving me up a wall. It's just the way it is, so I have to suffer through this. But
no worries.
Share one story that my father taught me, and it's about Peter getting out of the boat. And the story, the most popular way of looking at this, in my opinion, is okay, Peter gets out of the boat. He attempts to walk on the water and he sinks. And my father said, okay, that's great, but let's look at it a different way. He said, what were the other disciples doing? They were in the boat. They sat there. The point he was making, he said that, you know what? You can't walk on the water if you don't get out of the boat. The point being that whatever challenge that we have, whatever goal that we have, the boat is the place of safety. Are you willing to get out of the boat and take the walk of faith? Because a lot of times people will just sit in the boat where it's safe. So what he's telling me is you can't walk on the water if you don't get out of the boat.
Wow. That's powerful.
I never forgot that. So I don't sank a whole lot of time, but you know what? I said, hey, I'm getting out of the boat. I may sink. I won't drown, but I've got to take my chance and try and see what's going to happen. That's what it's all about.
You got to take the chance. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I'm going to keep that in me.
That's it. You got to get out of the boat.
That. I got something else from you today. How many nuggets did you drop on me today? I don't know.
I just share what I share.
Oh, God. Thank you so much for being here with us. Okay. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Curry. It's been an honor. And if I said anything that's a blessing anybody, I take no credit. It's just life experiences, my blank canvas journey, and whatever the Holy Spirit's having me to share. That's really what it's all about.
And we're so excited for everything that you're doing. So we will continue to connect. We have some other things that's coming up with our authors in 2023. We definitely want you to be a part. Okay.
Absolutely.
And we're going to continue to bring in more and more knowledge because you have a lot over there. I'm just going to have to just be around you for osmosis. How about that? And just absorb it all.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it. I promise.
Oh, God. Guys, this has been an amazing episode of Authors Unite. I mean, Mr. Alan Black, wow, it's just a wealth of knowledge, an amazing man. And I've just really had the opportunity to sit down with him and talk to him about everything that he's done so far in life and everything he's getting ready to do. His story is not over. He got lots more things that's coming out. And I'm just so excited to see what else is bringing in 2023 for him. So Thank you so much for being a part with us today and listening to this episode of Authors Unite with none other than author Mr. Alan T. Black. Make sure you follow him, connect with him on Facebook, go to his website, and also follow him on his Instagram. Once again, we'll see you soon. This is Demetris Curry signing off with W2AV Talk.
Thank you for tuning in to W2AV Talk with author and wealth strategist Demetris Curry. Connect with Demetris at demetriscurry.com and subscribe to the Demetris Curry YouTube channel today.